I'm Madeleine Harvey. Thank you so much for just hanging out with me today. Listen, I'm going to start this out by saying that this particular video is going to be heavy for me, but I wanted to explore something that is really important to us as singers. It is part of the work of who we are as vocalists, as creative people, as musicians, and that is authenticity. Of course, we all want it, but it's a really loaded word that unfortunately not a lot of us truly understand. Now, we might be able to identify it or define it here in our minds, but to anchor the feeling of what exactly that is, and furthermore, to build your voice around that feeling, is what I want to talk about today. And to truly understand authenticity, we have to look at its counterpart, inauthenticity. What is it to be inauthentic? What is that like? How sneaky is that as an energy? So hopefully by the end of today's video, you'll feel confident, free, a little bold, but most of all, authentic. So if you liked today's video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up or click that subscribe button below. I would love to see you here more often because I love you guys. I just absolutely love this conversation that we're starting in this space. So what is it inauthenticity? If we're to truly understand authenticity, what is it to be inauthentic, especially as a singer? Well, I think being inauthentic is so tricky and so subtle, but if I were to define it, I would say that it is behaving or showing up in a way that is for the approval or for the benefit of others. It's contouring your own behavior, what feels most natural to you, in a way that you know is for the approval or the benefit or considered appropriate by other people. Now, of course, when I put it to you like this, it's like, well, duh, I don't want that. But let's look at how subtle and tricky that influence really is. So much of our society is based upon conforming to a particular mold of behavior, whether it's a certain idea of what's beautiful or what's appropriate or what is talented. So when we contour, and I like that word, when we bend and fold or tie our unique gifts in a way that is for the benefit of other people, it's because other people have decided that it is more appropriate for us to show up with this particular tone quality. And that might not be what is most inherent to our soul as a singer. We're being inauthentic. Now, I'm not trying to throw any one of us under the bus. I will be the first one to tell on myself. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do that right now. If you see me on my channel anytime being like, oh, yeah, I'm being inauthentic, point blank. I know because I'm showing up in a way that I know that you might deem appropriate. And that's not what is the most honest place in my soul. So to give you to frame this for you in a way that makes sense to you, I'm going to tell you a story. When I was in college, I had the unique honor and privilege of studying in New York. And I was very, very touched and moved by this. Matter of fact, I felt, if I'm being completely honest, I felt like there might have been some sort of mistake. So I needed to prove that I deserved to be there because I was just completely surrounded by gloriously talented people. And I kind of felt like I was always trying to run just to keep up with everything. Well, the vocal department came together and they sort of placed everyone into little boxes. little niche boxes, and they said, this is who you will be in the entertainment industry. These are the roles that you will be able to go for. And I was placed in this box called ingenue. Now, even as I say that word, I get a little frustrated because it just felt incredibly reductive to who I was as a person. It felt incredibly small to the sounds that were in my soul, to the truth that was my creativity, to the roles that I wanted to sink my teeth into because I wanted to explore. I wanted to explore all that I was capable of. I was not allowed. I was put in this ingenue box, and I was only allowed to move forward in that ingenue sort of way. Well, it's unfortunate because I am from Kentucky. So I grew up singing country music. So I had this little twang, this little brassiness in my voice. And every time I felt to myself that I was showing up and I was being honest and I was being real and I was truly, truly believing in what I was saying, it was always met with this face. And those are what my teachers that just decided that that little twang in my voice, that little brassiness and brightness that was in my voice was not appropriate. And therefore, it must be trained out. So I will confess that at that time, I wanted to be a really good little student. Again, I really wanted to prove that I deserved to be there. So I proceeded. I allowed myself to be diminished down to this little box that, now there's nothing, I don't think there's anything wrong with the ingenue as a type in musical theater. But just in my soul, it felt like I was trapped. It felt like I was put in this box and I could not breathe. I couldn't move and everything was scrutinized. And I was in all these ways I was deficient. And I was always met with that face of disapproval. And sometimes my teacher would go like me, sing like me. And I would say, I'm not like you. So eventually this boiled to a head and I was placed on something called vocal probation. Now, anyone that's ever been in a conservatory, an art conservatory, knows what probation is. And that's basically like you're on watch. And if you do not improve drastically, like if you do not reinvent yourself by the next final performance, because all of our tests were in performances, then you were out. You were just out. You were out of the school and back to Kentucky I would go. Now, I didn't want that. But what I did not want more was this sacrificing of who I was deep, deep, deep in my soul. So on the floor of my dorm room, I cried, because I felt like I would never be safe to be who I knew that I was. So I got mad. I got really mad. And it turned out that my anger was and still is my saving grace. My anger was like, this is not who you are. This is not what you have to say. You are so much more than what you are being allowed to be. And yes, maybe you don't fit. Maybe you don't fit in that pretty little perfect little ingenue box because it didn't feed my soul. It didn't make me feel alive. It made me feel small. It made me feel inappropriate. So I told myself that if during my performance, my final performance, if in fact that was going to be my last performance in New York, that I wanted to make sure that it meant something to me. And I wanted to make sure that I was being honest. Sorry. That I was being honest and that I was being real. And so I allowed that anger, that injustice to take me into a place that regardless of the sound felt real. And at first it wasn't pretty. It wasn't pretty, but it felt so good. It felt so good because it felt like that's who you are. It felt like fire. It felt like aliveness. It felt like space. It felt like I could breathe. So in each of my practices prior to my performance, I just allowed myself to experience that space. And I went ahead and I took my place on the stage and I performed in my final performance. And I did so willing, full willing to lose everything that I thought that I had. I gave myself permission to experience parts of myself that I did not even know existed. Well, I am happy to say, that I did not get kicked out of the school, that in fact I ended up getting a scholarship. So yay! Authenticity! But the point of the story is that no one knows. No one knows better than you. And even parts of you don't even know. There's elements to your authenticity that you might have to fight for. That you might have to say, no, this is not who I am. This is not what feels right. So don't bend and fold and tie your voice into what you think other people want to hear. What I'm asking you to do is just begin the dialogue with yourself. That acting, singing, dancing are all experiential art forms, meaning that it is the experience of them right there in the moment that is the actual art. It's not always just reduced down to scales and to accuracy and to perfection, although those things are important. It's just you never want those things to replace that fire, that life, that intent, that space of who you are. Because the truth of the matter is, that's all you have to give anyways. How you see the world, how you see yourself, how you experience your own voice is the only real thing that you have to give the world. But I do understand that it's really easy to fall under the influence of trying to fit into something, because that something is a consensus of what other people think is beautiful or what other people think is correct. But it will never feed your soul. It will never fulfill you. But there is something that is beautiful in that, is that eventually, you'll get angry. Now, I'm giggling because I know how taboo that sounds. You know, like you're not supposed to be angry. You're not supposed to want to have your authenticity, your agency. Well, what is voice? What is it if not your own authority? Your own authority. You saying, this is who I am and this is what I have to say, regardless of what you think is going to be deemed appropriate by the masses. So I just wanted to share that story with y'all. Just wanted to share that because I, as a teacher, I see this all the time, and I'm a constant advocate for our right to explore our own voice. But I also know that that is really, really hard to do onto ourselves. It requires a sense of, I'm going to come into this voice thing, this voice idea, and I'm going to just create space. And in that space, I'm just going to allow myself to move sound. And in so doing, you're going to come across sounds that will feel so good to you. It'll feel like you're moving emotions, that you're just getting it off your chest, because let's be honest, we've got to get it off our chest. We've got to use our voices in all the myriad of colors and textures and tones. They're all beautiful and they all have a right to be seen and to be heard. So in your practice, I hope that you will keep this in mind, that authenticity, my definition of authenticity is to be completely and unapologetically present. Create that space. Play with sound. Feel what it feels like to be in that space. Or if you feel that you're trying to bend and fold your voice and it just doesn't, it feels like something that is life-taking rather than life-giving, don't be hard on yourself. We have all been trained to be inauthentic. We have all been trained that there is only a small handful of types. And if you don't fit into these 6 types, then you don't belong. You belong. You belong. We all belong. We all deserve to be seen and to be heard. But we have to feel what that's like. What is it like to be honest? It is still beautiful to be raw and to be dangerous and to be alive and to be inappropriate. That is still a beautiful thing. So stand with your head held high because you deserve to be seen and to be heard. But create that space for yourself and you will connect with something, I promise you, that will be so life-giving that to go back to the way that you used to be is just not possible. You cannot conform to what is appropriate or what is nice. You won't be able to do it. That's my hope for you. That's my hope for you, is that you love yourself for who you are. So if you liked today's video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up or click the subscribe button below. I would love to see you here more often. I invite you to comment on today's video. Tell me what you feel that authenticity feels like, or what does inauthenticity feel like. I'm looking forward to having this conversation with you guys. Thank you again for being a part of my musical family, and I look forward to seeing you sometime soon. Bye!